Asian elephants are incredibly huge animals. An adult elephant can be roughly 9 to 11 feet tall. Just standing next to one is pretty intimidating. But imagine being on top of one of them. It would be like if you had an average-sized man, and then another man was standing on the first man's shoulders. Then you'd be sitting on that second man's shoulders. That's pretty high up. For Leilani, it was her dream from her childhood to interact with a full-size Asian elephant. And that's where she found herself, in Thailand, on a mountain trail, on top of one of those huge animals. And then things went wrong. Real people in unreal situations.
The eerie silence when I walked in, and he's just staring at me.
I was like, hello, like, are you okay? And then I had to tell him it was me.
There was just blood everywhere.
They're shouting, they're screaming, they're being hit by bullets, they're hitting the ground.
And in that moment, I literally thought, this is how I die.
Everything changed then.
And I just thought to myself, this isn't happening.
Every single story deserves to be heard.
I'm Scott Johnson, and this is What Was That Like? This whole story kind of started early on in your life, and you were fascinated with a couple of elephants named Bertha and Tina. Can you tell us about that? That's kind of what sparked this whole thing, right?
Yeah, sure. So when I was a kid, my adopted mother worked at the Nugget Casino as a payroll clerk. So we spent a lot of time there. We went there all the time. And of course, she loves to gamble. So every chance I could get, I would go sneak off to see the elephants. And I just fell in love with them. They were often behind a fence where they would come out to their habitat where you could view them. And I would just sit there for hours and just watch them and the trainers. And first it was just Bertha. And then Tina came along a little bit later. Then I had 2 elephants and I started collecting all things elephants. So it'd been a lifelong dream for me to just be able to interact with them like those trainers.
They are amazing animals. They really are.
Oh my gosh, they're amazing. And when you learn more about them and how sensitive their hooves are and how they communicate to each other through the earth, through their hooves, and also they're very nurturing, mothering nature, and the way the herds work together, it's just a beautiful way of living. And so I've loved them my whole life. And I couldn't wait to one day be able to have an experience like those trainers and interact more intimately with them.
And you live in the U.S., right?
Correct.
So you can't really have an elephant as a pet. So
no.
It would be, I imagine, probably not even legal, but I'm sure very expensive to feed them.
Oh, yeah. They eat a ton.
So what did you do? How did you start to make that happen?
It was actually 2018, January of 2018, that I decided to book a trip to Southeast Asia. I booked 2 stops, one in Singapore to stop and visit a girlfriend of mine and her family that were stationed there in the military. And then her and I would continue on to Thailand for a girls' getaway. So that was the original plan. And I spent hours researching elephant sanctuaries because I wanted to find an experience that was authentic, that was remote, but also, most importantly, ethical. Because a lot of elephant sanctuaries have reputations as not actually being sanctuaries. And my girlfriend was like, yeah, I'm not going to join you because I've already been to one of those sanctuaries, and she had gone to one where they put the saddles on them and everything. And so she was like, there's no way I'm going to do what you're planning to do. So I knew I was going to go it alone, but I wanted again to find a place that was ethical. So I spent hours researching, and I found one that was about an hour outside of Chiang Mai in the mountains. They claimed to rescue elephants from those types of sanctuaries and not use any of their methods, but really just to allow them to live in a space free and invite tourists to come and help care for them as part of how they fund their sanctuary. I found this one after so much time, and I was so excited. I booked the trip and we flew out to Singapore, and I spent some time there with my girlfriend and her family. And then we got on a plane and went to Thailand, and we were there for a couple days. So I did get to see a little bit of Thailand. And
that's not really why you were there, though, right?
No.
The person you were traveling with, what's her name?
Julia.
Julia. Okay.
So we flew straight from Singapore into the northern part of Thailand, which is where Chiang Mai is. And she and I spent a couple days touring the temples, eating all the delicious food with this, which if you're a vegetarian or vegan, like the Mecca over there, they have such flavorful food. And so we really took in the culture. We took in the scene. Then the morning of January 26th, we had some breakfast, and then she and I went to a spa and had our pedicures done. After our pedicures, I went back to the hotel for them to pick us up in a van. The tour company was be picking us up in a van. So I was the first one to pick it up, and then we picked up about 3 other couples on our way up to the sanctuary. And yeah, it was about an hour drive, but it was beautiful.
And you went, Julia stayed behind.
Julia did not come. She and I agreed that we would meet back at the hotel by 5:30 because we had plans to attend a dinner and a show with cultural dances and those types of things. So that was the agreement, and off I went, happy as could be. And she was like, good luck, girl, because Black people don't do crazy. And I hope I'll see you back here. But if not, I know what's happened. And I took the risk.
It was you as a single person and then 3 couples.
Correct.
And did you, when you got there, did you have to sign any kind of release, like for injury or death or anything like that?
Yeah. So we initially pulled up in from the main road into what's called the parking lot. And it was a parking lot for the elephants, and it was a parking lot for us humans. And there were like 4 or 5 elephants there, and they didn't have any tethers. They weren't tied to anything. They were just munching and having a good time. And the tourists were leaving, and they were happy. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. This is going to be so great. I was amped. I was ready for my afternoon with the elephants. And so then from the parking lot, we hiked down to the main hut, maybe like half a mile, maybe 3/4 of a mile, but we hiked down to the main hut, and it's gorgeous. It's just lush and green, and you can smell the frangipani flowers everywhere. It's epic up there. You come to the main hut, and then when we got there, then they had somebody there that would help us, that gave us waivers to sign. They also issued us a special shirt, and that is what the trainers would wear so that the elephants would know that, we're trainers or we're staff, to respond to us and to respond to our commands appropriately.
So they would know they're safe with you if they see that. Okay. Good.
Right. And there really were no fences. They didn't have the elephants tied up to anything. They had them in the back. It was just very open, and they would have huts like scattered throughout the property, but they had this one main hut that, all of us would come to with some lockers that we could keep our stuff there, wash our hands, and take care of all the paperwork. So that's where we started.
So the elephants that you saw when you first got there, I mean, I can sense the excitement that, I mean, you're just driving into the parking lot and all of a sudden, man, there we are with the elephants. Were those the elephants that your group would be riding?
No, they were different elephants.
Because they had just gotten back. So they must rotate them around in between groups. Okay.
Yeah. And there's so many elephants there. And so there really wasn't an issue of seeing the same one over and over again. And so we filled out our paperwork, and then they brought out an elephant per couple. And in my case, I had my own little elephant. My elephant was a juvenile elephant, so it was a little bit smaller. I had a young male who was the trainer who was there with me. We started off feeding the elephants, and so they gave me this leaf basket with a bunch of treats in it, and they taught me some commands. He taught me some commands. Then he took my camera and stepped back and was just taking pictures as I was feeding the elephant and talking with it. And it was about 30 minutes of an interaction. And it was like the energy was so good. And the elephant with the tail was just wagging. And
so their tails wag like a dog when they're happy?
Their tails wag. Yes. Yes. Their tails wag when they're happy. And their trunks will just like wrap around you, or like if you drop something, they'll pick them up and they'll like just play with you. And so it was about 30 minutes, and my trainer was taking pictures. Once they give you the commands, he would just step back and take pictures and allowed me to have the interaction. But I noticed a photographer, like a professional photographer with a really nice camera, taking pictures of us. And so I was like, all right, like I signed a waiver, so, it's cool or whatever. But that was really the only people that were in the vicinity, and just me and the elephant interacting. I loved it. It was great. Every time the tail would wag, the kid would be like, oh, he likes you. His tail is wagging. And then, he would flap his ears, and then he would say like, good, keep going, to encourage me, let me know like those are good signs. And so it was a great time. The next part of the adventure is the trainer led the elephant, and the elephant would just walk along, me right by his side, and we all made our way. The 4 elephants went down to this river, and the river pulled up into this like huge lagoon. And so you went into the lagoon, and that's where we would swim and bathe the elephant. But it's just opens up into this very expansive view of the jungles. And it is a gorgeous view, and the river is flowing, and the lagoon is huge and deep, and not too deep, but you can really, play with the elephants and interact. They led us down to the bank of the river, and they gave us it was like a brush or like a broom, but it was made of leaves. And so, we brushed the elephants and the dirt off of them using that broom made of leaves. And then they led the elephant into the water, and then we got to splash around with the elephant, and the elephant would blow water, all over everywhere and everybody. And there's it's big enough of a lagoon that 4 elephants are in there with that many people, and there's still so much room. So it was a beautiful view, and it was about 30 to 45 minutes if you include the time that we were cleaning the elephants off on the bank of the river. Everybody's having a great time, smiles, and after we're done, then we again follow the trainer, and we all head up with each of our elephants back up to the main hut. And we dropped the elephants off there. And then another one of the staff led us on a short little hike. We went to another little hut. And when I say hut, what I'm meaning is it's like a flat platform. It has a bamboo flooring. It's got bamboo poles up, so there's no walls. And then it's got a thatched roof. So we went in, we sat down in the hut, and the jungle is all around us, and you can just hear the animals. And we had some nuts and some fruits and some sandwiches and just chit-chatted, got to meet some of the other, people there. It was a pleasant time.
You must, at this point, be anxious, like, come on, let's get going. We got to get on the trail, right? Or were you thinking that?
Well, I mean, no, I wasn't really. I was ready for a break because they're pretty big beasts. And so when you're trying to bathe them and clean them, and I don't have another person to share taking care of my elephant, I'm ready for some rest and some rejuvenation. So every experience, I'm really just soaking it in, because it's hard to describe how beautiful the setting is with the animals, and it being so natural and not forced. It's just really like an organic experience, and you just take your time and you can really just enjoy each moment for what it was. And I had been waiting my whole life, so I wasn't going to skip any part of this. We could have spent a whole hour there feeding the elephant. I would have loved it. So I was just really soaking it in, but I was anxious to get on top. Yes, because that is the whole reason why, I specifically picked this elephant sanctuary, because I would be able to ride on an elephant in a way that was ethical. So we made our way back to the main hut, and they let out one elephant at a time. They showed us how to get on top of the elephant. The elephant will put its leg, kind of bend its leg. And so you can step on the knee, and then step on the hip, and then step on the shoulder, and then climb on top, and then straddle the elephant. And there's no rope. There's no tether. There's no saddle. It's just you and the elephant. I saw two couples. They demoed how to do it. And then I saw two different couples go up with two different elephants and load. And so they started going up the trail, and it was my turn.
How nervous were you at that point?
I was so nervous because the one that they brought out was bigger. It wasn't the same elephant that I had interacted with earlier. It was a bigger elephant. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is not the same elephant. I don't know how our energy is going to be. Yeah,
because you had already kind of established a rapport with the other one, right? The younger one.
Exactly. So, I knew that, that situation was safe and we had good vibes. And this one was totally new to me. So I didn't know how he or she, or I didn't know anything about this elephant, but how would they accept me? I was like, there's another couple waiting. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, it's go time, girl. Let's go. Chop, chop.
This
time
is what you've been waiting for.
Exactly. So I climb on top and I get all the way up there, and I look down and I'm like, wow, this is high, and this thing is huge. I have gone horseback riding for me before. And so you get a sense of how that's going to be, but this is nothing like that. It is so high, and the beast is so big. And when you realize you can just see just these little hairs on top of their head, and you can't grab their ears because they're on the side and you're this little person on the top. So that's when I was really like, wow, there is nothing to hold on, and I am really high up here. But I didn't like listen to that intuitive nudge. I was just like, it's go time. Come on. Like, let's go.
Did you feel like these people are professionals? If there was a chance of me falling off, they would have already thought of that and taken care of that potential risk. But they do this all the time.
Right. And the two elephants with each couple atop their elephants, they were being trainer led up the trail. So, and we had this little boy, this trainer that was with me, like he was there the whole time. So I was just like, oh yeah, like the proper safety precautions are being taken. And so I'm going to be fine.
And you referred to him as a little boy. How old would you say he was?
He was probably 14 or 15.
Wow. Okay. But he's probably been doing this his whole life.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Because the family does own the sanctuary. So, and I could be wrong because, again, Asian people are like fantastic. Their health and their vitality is fantastic, and they look younger than they really are.
He could have been 40.
Exactly. Exactly. He was a younger kid in his mid to late teens. And so I gave the command and off we went. We jumped right in line with the other elephant, and then they loaded up the elephant behind, and all four of us are trudging up this trail alongside the mountain in Chiang Mai. My elephant keeps trying to pass the elephant in front. So he'll like speed up a little bit, but then the elephant in front will move in a way to like block him from making much progress. And so I'm up there riding pretty high. And every time he does this, I'm like, whoa, Tiger, like, oh my gosh, this, like, slow down. But because that elephant keeps us in check and we stay in line, I relax. I'm like, okay, well, this is cool. We got the hang of it, He's feeling my vibes, I'm like speaking telepathically. He's getting it.
And the trail was only wide enough really for single file, right?
Right. So, I'm like, okay, this is safe. We're good. So I start relaxing and having a good time. I'm smiling. I'm thinking I am on top of the freaking world. Like this is like the pinnacle. This is what I have been waiting for. I am stoked. Okay. And there comes a point in the trail where it turns left, and to the right is the mountain. And so there's a little space there. And my elephant starts doing that galloping thing where he tries to go in. And I am just thinking like, yippee, because I'm thinking that he's going to be corrected and like back off, So I'm just like, woohoo, thinking yippee. And that is the last thing that I remember. I very vividly remember taking my breath, just taking a deep breath and feeling my body and flicking my eyes open. I saw 6 Asian faces looking down at me. I saw my body. I look down. I can see my body. I can see I'm in an ambulance. I can hear the sirens going. And I am like, uh-oh, something happened. And their faces are just telling me everything I need to know because, yeah, a couple of them are like moving around and doing stuff, but the ones on my left side are just like not even trying to make eye contact, and they're just like, they look really stressed out. So I start saying what happened pretty softly, and nobody is responding. I look at the photographer. I recognize the photographer, and it looks like she has this bubble, this text bubble over her head, and it says like, oh shit, And so I look at her and I'm like, what more forcefully say, what happened? And she says that you fell off the elephant and we're on our way to the hospital. I did a body scan. I could feel my body was really heavy. I didn't know the extent of my injuries. The first thing I did was check my teeth. I checked my teeth and I'm like, if I can eat, whatever's happened to me, I'm going to be okay. My moneymaker, my smile, I can eat, I'm going to be able to handle whatever it is. So just sit back and relax because you have no control over this situation at this point.
Did it occur to you that, wow, from the time you fell, and you didn't even know that you had fallen, but there was time for them to react to that and to call an ambulance. And in a rural area, it might take a while for the ambulance to get there. Did you think, man, I have been unconscious for a while? Or do you know how long you were unconscious?
Yeah, I didn't think about how long I had been unconscious until after the fact. I just know that I'm in an ambulance and I have no control and I have no idea what's happened to me. But obviously, I've fallen off of the elephant and I just go, close my eyes, shut out the noise, go within and just focus on my breathing until we get to the hospital. And I asked the lady, the photographer, how much longer until we get to the hospital? And she said, about 10 minutes out. For the rest of the 10 minutes, I just stayed to myself.
As an aside, do you do meditation?
I do.
Okay, because it sounds like those are the practices that you're employing here to respond calmly to the situation. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you think your injuries were, or did you have any idea?
I had no idea. And I didn't want to look at my body. I didn't want to know. I didn't move because I didn't know if I had a neck injury or not. I just did not want to move. The only thing I moved was literally my tongue to assess if I would be able to eat, if I would be able to recuperate from this injury. And I had I didn't dare move my body. So they wheel me into the ER and there's a group of people that are there, like normal clothed people, and the hospital staff, they're already waiting for me. So we get in and one guy steps up and he says, what can I do? How can I help you? And right away I'm like, my friend, I'm not going to make the dinner and show in this sorry ass condition, So I'm like, listen, let my friend know at the hotel that I'm here and that's it. And they wheel me into a private room. I can smell my urine. So I know that I have lost a sense of control and I was unconscious for quite some time. And this is when I'm like, wow, they would have had to bring me all the way down. I don't know what's happening. And I start actually looking at my body as the staff are, working around me. They sit me up. And I'm looking at my body. It's a well-lit private room. I take a look at my wrist and my left wrist is grossly malformed. My right wrist and my right elbow are aching, but there's no breaks in the skin in either of my arms. My legs I have pants on, but they don't feel like anything is broken or smashed there. My ribs, it did hurt to breathe, so I could feel some discomfort there, but there's blood. And so I know that my face has been damaged. They worked around me and I was really uncomfortable. My left wrist was really uncomfortable. And we were waiting for a doctor to come in who could speak English. They had a doctor there, of course, directing the staff around me, but he was, speaking Thai. And so they finally put this contraption that looked like Chinese checkers on my fingertips, and it held my fingertips up, and then my arm was loose, and then a band that hung with a weight at the very bottom, hung down from my biceps. And that opened up my wrist, stretched my wrist out so that it could create space and the bones wouldn't be so smashed. And I got so much relief from that contraption being up like that. So it became a little bit easier. I could become a little bit more coherent to what was going on around me. And Julia showed up and just stayed in the corner there. They allowed her to be there, but she just stayed there off in the distance. And then a English speaking doctor finally entered the room, and he let me know that he was a specialist and he was there to address the most pressing injury, which was my left wrist, and that I had 3 options. One was to have emergency surgery there in Thailand, and that the facilities were not like the American hospitals. So he would pump me full of antibiotics. He would guesstimate the parts. They would need to get them, but they had what they had. And that he was qualified to perform the surgery, but those were his limitations. If I chose to choose option number 1 and have the surgery in Thailand, and it would cost about 4,000 cash.
So they would have had to order the metal parts or rods or whatever they would have to put in your arm, but they may not get the right parts, is what he was. Right. Okay. That was his concern.
That was his concern. And the fact that they wouldn't have the parts until the next day, because it would take some time for them to get what he felt would be the best fit and what they had. So that was his main concern there. The second option would be to give me some pain control, get me on a flight with my girlfriend, Julia, and get me to Singapore, where they had more modern facilities and could do the surgery there. Didn't know the cost, didn't know the surgeon, didn't know anything, a lot of unknowns in that situation. But Julia would be with me to help me get as far as Singapore and get some help and have the surgery there. Or option 3, which would be to fly all the way back to America, have some pain meds, but on that long of a flight, the pain meds would wear off. Find a surgeon under my insurance because I didn't have travel insurance. Find a surgeon in America under my insurance plan and have the surgery back in America. If I went into a hospital with my insurance plan into the ER, then, I would have gotten quick surgery.
Yeah,
then.
It's emergency surgery. Yeah.
Right. But again, I wouldn't know who the doctor, and he couldn't give me any guarantees, but he knew, in America, this is going to be your chance. You're going to get good health care there, is his assumption. My girlfriend is she's pushing me for go with option number 2 so I can be with.
And that's just get to Singapore and hope for the best.
Right. I tell her, step back. I need some space to think about this. I look at my wrist and I just know I'm not going to make it that far.
How long was the trip to Singapore?
2 hours. Yeah, 2 hours on the flight. And I just know I'm not going to make it that far. It's not like they're going to give me anesthesia, they're going to give me some oral medication, oral pain meds. And so I just know without that contraption on my wrist, I'm not going to be able to manage my pain with meditation and some pain meds.
Yeah. And on a 2-hour flight, it could be an hour in that it starts kicking in, and it would not be a pleasant flight for the other passengers either.
Right.
To hear you screaming in pain for an hour. Right.
Right. And the flights are packed. Your arm is messed up. Your other arm I had broken my right wrist and my right arm too, but they weren't in multiple pieces like my left wrist. My face was all banged up and my ribs were, bruised up. And so it's not like it's going to be easy to get back to the hotel, get all of our belongings, pack up, get to the airport, go through airport security, get on a flight in a little tiny seat, get 2 hours to Singapore, then get in a taxi, get to her place. And it's not just a 2-hour flight. It's a lot of prep to get into a place where we can travel and get back to Singapore safely.
So Julia must have seen your logic behind that it wasn't a good option.
She really didn't have a choice. After I told her, like, step back and leave me alone, she just knew to just zip it and leave me alone.
Smart move.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what did you decide to do?
So I looked at the doctor and I said, you're sure you can do this? You are qualified to do hand surgery. And he said, I am. I can do this surgery. And he's speaking really good English. And he tells me that he was educated in America. He did like a residency or something. So I was like, okay, then let's do it. I just did a gut check and said, let's go for it and hope for the best. He said, okay. So he left, and then they had a plastics surgeon come in and, stitch up my face.
What were the injuries to your face?
Yeah, my lip was pretty lacerated, and I had bruises and contusions and scrapes all over my face. I didn't have a break in my scalp, so I didn't have anything that way. They stitched me up. They cleaned me up. They took me to a private room, and I couldn't wait to get showered and get out of my urine-soaked clothes and actually have some time without a ton of stimulation going on around me, and really just take a deep breath. Like, all the decisions, all the executive function of my brain, like everything I needed, I could just actually sit back and process and take in what's happened.
Yeah, and that's needed. After a traumatic event like that, you just got to sit and think about it a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was completely overwhelmed. And knowing that I was going to be having surgery and what I was up against, I needed to prepare for that the next day. And so, I needed the mental fortitude to be able to get through that as well. Surgery day, my pain meds wear off before the surgery, and they can't give me any more because of the time slot.
Wait a minute. I don't understand. Can you explain that?
You can take like the pain meds every 4 to 6 hours. By this time, the adrenaline is not pumping in my system like it was at first. So
you're back to reality now.
I'm back to reality, and my body is getting back to a more, balanced homeostasis, like natural state. And so, I'm really feeling the discomfort, and they can't give me any more pain meds sooner because of the time restriction. And I haven't hit the surgical suite yet, so I don't have anesthesia on that left wrist, and I'm really uncomfortable. And so I use meditation, and for the first time, I let myself cry and just really take in, like, this is what it is. They keep me comfortable. I eventually get into the surgical suite, and the anesthesiologist is there, and that's the first time they talk about my brain, because when I came in, they didn't take any scans of my brain. They didn't talk about my brain, nothing about my brain. It was just the physical injuries that they wanted to triage and take care of first. And so that's the first time somebody mentions my brain as the anesthesiologist. And he tells me, I can't put you under general anesthesia because of your brain injury. And so we're going to have to do local anesthesia.
So he knew there was a brain injury?
Everybody knew there was a brain injury, but it wasn't what was pressing to anybody there. And I didn't think about it because I can still communicate. I'm still making decisions. And so in their mind, they're probably like, oh, well, she's not that bad. She can communicate. Her pupils are dilating. She's perfect. I don't have any lacerations on my skull or anything. So they're probably thinking, she's perfectly fine. I'm not even considering anything to do with my brain. I can't feel pain. So I don't notice that anything is different. So he tells me, I can't put you under general. So you're going to be awake for this surgery. You're going to hear everything. You're going to see everything. And it's going to take hours, and I'm going to keep you comfortable, but you're going to be awake. And so I'm like, damn, okay, this is a whole new level that I was not expecting.
Here's the real test of the meditation skills.
Here's the real test. Exactly. Then he says, we're going to actually have to enter in through your neck, through your left neck. And I'm going to use sonogram technology to help me, but I'm going to go through your left neck up at the top here, and I'm going to have to go all the way down to the bottom of your clavicle near your brachial plexus. And I'm going to use the sonogram to help guide me, but this is going to be a team effort. You're going to have to tell me when I'm there. And what I mean by that is you're going to feel an electrical shock all the way down your arm, and it needs to get all the way to your fingertips, and it's not going to be comfortable. So you have to be very still. You cannot move at all. And when I get there, then you got to tell me when it gets all the way to your fingertips that I'm there. And then I will be able to dispense the medication, and then we'll be good for the surgery. So again, I'm like, damn. And so, okay, let's do this. I get myself ready. He goes in, and I feel it. And I let him know, you're there. And he goes, are you sure? Yes, you're there. And he looks at the sonogram. He goes, no. And he backs out. And I'm like, oh, God, no. So he says, we're going to do it again. We're going to have to do it again. And so thank God the second time takes, because after that first time, I'm like, you have got to be fucking kidding me. This is just a whole new level. So he delivers the medication, and it makes me pretty groggy, but I'm kind of in and out of sleep during the surgery, but I can hear everything. I can hear the screws. They have a curtain, so lucky I can't see them, but I can see, three people around my wrist working, and I can just hear it like a literal drill going, putting these plates and all these screws into my wrist. Eventually the surgery ends. They take me to recovery. They take me back to my room, and Julia is there in the cot in the corner, and she's just silent. She knows to just let me process and let me have my time.
Yeah, she knows you better than anybody.
Yeah. So, we spent like 3 days total recovery. The third day, just the morning, because, we leave, but it was about 3 days of recovery. She came and went, she brought me some stuff, and I just spent, my time really recovering. I let, 3 people know what had happened. I didn't let them know the severity of what had happened.
Who were the 3 people?
They were 3 friends. So one friend was staying with my children. And so I let her know, hey, I've fallen off of the elephant, and my stay is going to be a little bit longer. Don't worry. Everything's fine. Please tell the kids everything's fine. I just have to extend my stay a few more days, and I'll be home. Everything's fine. And so they're thinking like, okay, like no big deal. She just had this little accident. They have no concept. Nobody in my sphere has ridden an elephant. They have no idea. And then I tell another friend, and she calls and gets my flight rebooked. And then I tell a third friend who is like a mother hen type of all my friends. And, she fusses and is critical and makes me think about all of these different things. And I need that, because I know that when I step back into the real world, I need some type of transition from being so centered and in this traumatic experience to, entry back into the real world and thinking about all that's going to be coming my way once I do that.
All your responsibilities. Yeah.
Yeah, so I let them know. I don't let any of my extended family know. I don't let anybody. I texted my boss too. I also text my boss and let him know I would need some extra days of medical leave. And that was about it. I didn't let anybody else know. I just stayed to myself and focused on my healing. The owners of the elephant sanctuary, they stayed in touch. They stayed in touch with the staff. They came by every day to check on me. They brought me a fruit basket, and I couldn't take it with me on the flight, so I gave it to the nurses. And they apologized profusely. They had explained when I was in the private room and he came to that man that I initially spoke to when I came into the emergency room. He came back in to let me know that they were able to reach Julia and that she would be here shortly, and that his family were the owners of the sanctuary, and he wanted to personally apologize for everything that happened. He explained that my elephant had been a younger male elephant than the older male elephant that was in front of us. And it became an ego battle. And when my elephant tried to pass the older male elephant, when he got to the side of him, he checked him and off I flew.
Like a hip check.
Yep. And that's about all he said, other than, we're really, really sorry. We're going to keep close tabs. So he left. So I knew when they took me into the hospital room, that's the extent of what I knew. And that's when I'm thinking like, wow, they would have had to get me down. I was unconscious at that point, so they would have had to clear that up. They would have had to load me in a van. They would have had to bring me down. They would have had to meet the ambulance at the city limits, because the ambulance is not going to come all the way up that way in this rural area. So the staff there would have had to make sure that they got me down to meet with the ambulance. So they would have had to load me up in a van. They would have had to bring me back down and then meet up with the ambulance, which is where I woke. So I estimate that I was unconscious for about an hour and a half, an hour and 15 minutes. And that's just being, pretty conservative based on my best guess. So that's how much I know at that point. They arranged for a car to pick us up, and me and Julia get on a flight to Singapore, and we walk into her house, and her husband looks at me and takes a breath like, wow, I didn't know it was that bad. I didn't know. Julia told me, I'm like, didn't Julia tell you? And he's like, yeah, she did. But she didn't tell me I like this, So I'm like, okay, so I'm starting to get people's reactions. Okay.
I would have thought Julia would tell her husband, hey, you're going to see something pretty bad, but don't react too badly to it. She didn't warn him at all, huh?
No, but she did tell him something, because I said, I don't even know what happened. I have no idea, because I haven't been talking to Julia. I haven't been talking to anybody. So for the first time, I let them both know I have no memory of the incident and what I have been told so far. And so I go, I have no idea what happened to me after I fell off that elephant and how I got back into that ambulance. And he shows me the video of Black Sheep, where Chris Farley takes that gnarly roll down the mountain. Have you ever seen that movie?
I've seen the movie, but I don't remember that scene.
Yeah. So he's up at the top of this mountain, and he takes a tumble down, and then he gets to a cliff's edge, and he's like, oh, I made it. I'm fine. And then that cliff thing falls, and he keeps tumbling down, and then he grabs onto a vine, and he's like, oh, thank God for the vine. I'm safe now. And then that comes off. And so he keeps going, and he ends up at the bottom of this mountain, just, ate shit. And so I'm like, okay, that's probably why the other elephants didn't trample me, and I was able to like not have those same injuries that everybody else had, because the nurse did tell us that I was very fortunate to be alive, because most people that fall off of the elephant, they don't care for them. They end up coming and just going straight to the morgue downstairs or become paralyzed, and they don't make it to their unit.
For her to know that, it seems like it must happen on a fairly regular basis.
Yeah. And maybe not regular, but enough to know that they know that that's something that they have to be prepared to deal with.
You weren't the first.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm piecing things together, and I end up catching an Uber from her place in Singapore to the airport and inch my way back home. And people see me and they help me with my luggage and help me with stuff. But I'm really just on my own. I end up having a whole like aisle to myself, and I lay down and I put my wrist up on the tray, and the flight attendants are keeping my ice packs cool, and we're just rotating as they're helping me to care for my injuries so that I can make it all the way back home. There was an Asian Christian woman that sat next to me on the second leg of my flight back to New Jersey. And she said, let me get an Uber with you because I live right next to you, which God is always in my life. So she's like, let me help you get home because I live just down the street from you, and we'll share an Uber and I'll help you. So I was like, oh, thank you. So we pull into my apartment and I video call my girls to say, hey, can you come out and help me with the luggage? And my daughter goes, damn, what happened to you?
You're just getting reactions from everyone.
Yeah. So again, I know that I didn't share it with anybody, but I know that, I look pretty bad.
Had you seen yourself in a mirror at all?
I did see myself in the mirror in the hospital, but I knew what I had been through. So it wasn't like a shock to me.
Right. You expected something really bad.
Right. Yeah.
But you had told them at home that that's no big deal.
They had no idea that I had had surgery. They had no idea that I had fallen off the elephant. They thought just a minor accident, and that I had decided to extend my stay there just to keep playing because I had to take some time to recover and I didn't get to soak in more of Thailand. So they had no idea that I was coming straight from the hospital in the condition that I was in.
And that was the whole point. You didn't want them to worry.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Okay. I knew it was bad, and I started, I got into therapy. I went to work the next day. My boss looked at me, and he could barely look at me, and the office was silent. Nobody knew how to react to me, and he just told me, call the doctor and get home and get better. And so I did, and I called the doctor, and then I went home after work and was on medical leave as I rehabbed it. I had to have surgery multiple times because the parts were too long. And during therapy, it ended up severing my tendon to my thumb. And so I had to have, multiple surgeries to take out the hardware and do repair work on my left hand and wrist. That's when I saw a neurologist, and we took scans and started to take medications and started to treat my brain and work through that long recovery process in New Jersey with American doctors. It was quite the struggle because I'm a single mom, and this was before COVID. So delivery was not a thing at that time. And so I would still need to drive the kids to school and, do all the things that I needed to do. And we just made fun of it. We just laughed at it. They would call me T-Rex because I would have to take the card and I couldn't bend my right arm and my left arm was in a cast. So my right arm and my right wrist are broken. And so I would have to just slide the credit card down the reader using my whole body. I was really busted up. And so we got through it. My daughters were there for me. We got through it. They broke the news to my ex-husband and he just kind of laughed it off and said, that when we were in Kauai and riding horses, my horse was excited and kept trying to run off then too.
So you have a history of this.
Mm-hmm. And so he kind of laughed it off. And then my family, my extended family in Nevada, I didn't share the details with them until a few months into the process, because if you grow up in a Polynesian family, you just know there's no sympathy. There's no sorry for you or da-da-da-da. No, it's they're going to laugh at you and they're going to make fun of you and they're going to tell you that's what you get and get better and just expect you to buck up. There's no sympathy in a Polynesian family.
That seems like it would just make it worse. Or is that what you expected anyway?
That's what I expected anyways. Yeah, that's what I expected anyways. And so when you grow up that way, you just know that's how it's going to be. It's the norm. So you don't expect anything different.
You had a traumatic brain injury, and how is that? What's that like now? Would you say you're fully recovered?
I would say that my life has changed actually pretty drastically with the multiple surgeries, with dealing with healthcare in the US and all the drugs that we would try and all the scans. And when it's a brain injury, there's so many unknowns. You just have no way of treating it. It's really experimental and you just got to try out and see what works and what doesn't work. It's been quite the challenge. And so I like to compare it to, when you see Pangea and how the tectonic plates cause things to shift and then they connect and then disconnect and then come back together. I feel like my life and my journey since falling off the elephant has very much been like that. I live each day like it's my last day. It slowly realigned me. Like God has had a hand in my life, and I feel like I have been realigned, and things that weren't important shifted out of my life and things that were important shifted in. And then I realized, okay, maybe that's not important, and things shifted. And so, there's been a lot of shifting as I've learned who I really am, what really matters to me, what are my values, what can I live with, what do I need to be humbled about, what do I need to say sorry for. I'm definitely no angel. So it's been very much this coming to Jesus type of an experience to really come back to myself and say, life truly is precious. And so think about what that means for you. And it's been major shifts externally, but it's been major shifts internally. I've become vegetarian. I've made these changes because my outlook on life and what that means for me and how I want to live out each and every day is very different from the way that I took things for granted before. I decided I wanted to start a business and I wanted to change the way healthcare operates in America based off of what I wanted for myself And I knew that that would benefit other people. And I knew I couldn't go into a corporate setting anymore. I came up with a different system, which is a cultivation of all 26 years of my time in healthcare. And being in that vulnerable place myself, it just really put me in that place where God was like, what are you going to do with this knowledge now? What would you want for yourself? And how could you be of service to other people? And so I am building this business now where I'm focusing on consulting for healthcare that is ethical, that puts people first. And I'm, trying to find and link up with a community of providers that are, not going to be upcoding E&Ms, that are not going to be out here unbundling facial reconstructions or making excuses for, I'm not going to give them this $15 treatment of sodium, of SDF, silver diamine fluoride, because they're not going to like that black dot on their tooth when we both know that that black dot is better than the filling or the crown or the root canal that you're trying to pitch them in your treatment plan. I just can't live that way anymore. And so those are the types of providers that I'm, aligning myself with. And even if you have a past, I've had a past, but this system is going to work if you're ready to start practicing ethically, to really make things better for practices and for patients without it being revenue centric. And then branching out into travel advisory, because healthcare in America is not always the best option. There are a lot of places around the globe that have excellent care, excellent aftercare. It's at a fraction of the cost. And then also with public speaking and raising awareness about, people with accessibility issues and people with brain injuries and just human rights in general. And I'm just speaking for myself because I can only take accountability for my choices before the fall and who I was before and the person that I became after. It sounds crazy to say like, oh, I'm glad I fell off that elephant. I would never blame the elephant. So let's just get that, squared off right off the bat. It was me. It was my dream to be in that place and to be in a place that was authentic, that didn't have the ropes and the harnesses and the saddles and didn't have the use of picks and all that stuff. It was my choice to be there. So I understand that part. And the recovery part, of course, like that's not an easy thing, but the growth that has happened within me has been awesome. And again, it's been very humbling.
Well, it's always good to hear. I mean, we have a lot of traumatic stories on here, but it's always good to hear when that comes out as a positive in the end.
Yeah.
It sounds like that's what's happening here. Does your new company have a website?
I will send that to you and send you all of my social links and the website and everything up so that, if there's anybody out there that needs some travel or you need some consulting in fraud, waste, and abuse, or get your documentation right, anything like that, these are the issues that really matter to me. And I am uniquely, positioned to help some people out. So I'll send that all over to you and then we'll share that with our audience. That would be great, Scott.
We'll put all of that in the episode notes so that people can check that out and get in touch with you if they need help.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming on and sharing your story. It's pretty crazy, but I'm glad it's working out for you.
Thank you. I love you. I love everybody. Thanks, you guys, for being here.
You can see pictures of Leilani and the elephants in the episode notes at whatwasthatlike.com/211. As I was putting this episode together, I was thinking about whether or not I would ever want to ride on an elephant if that opportunity ever came up. And I don't think I would. And I'd be kind of split on the reasoning behind that. Part of it would be because of my love for animals, which is why I'm vegan. I definitely don't eat any animal products. As far as riding animals, I'm certainly not going to judge anyone who wants to do that, especially in this case where Leilani tried to do her homework and find a place that treats the elephants fairly. And I know there will be some who say making them do anything at all is exploiting the animal, and I get that. It's a fair point. But at the place she went to, it sounds like the elephants at least have a reasonably peaceful existence. But the other thing for me is the thing that Leilani noticed. When you're up there, you're really high up, and you've got nothing to hold on to try and keep your balance and not fall off. I think that would probably be a no-go for me, just for that reason. What do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Call in the podcast voicemail line, 727-386-9468, and you can call anytime, day or night, and leave a message, and I'll probably play it on a future episode. This past Friday, we had the second installment of a new type of episode we're doing. These are called Scott Tells a Story, and they're just short episodes that come out in the off weeks in between the other regular What Was That Like episodes. So you'll still get a brand new episode with a guest telling a crazy story every other Friday, like we've always done. And so far, these short story episodes with just me telling a story has had 100% positive response. So I'm planning to continue that, and they'll usually be about once a month and always on a Friday. Our Facebook question this past Tuesday was, what's one of the stupidest things you've ever done? Obviously, everyone has done something stupid, and some of these things are pretty entertaining. If you want to share yours or just see what stupid things other people have done, come on over and join us at whatwasthatlike.com/Facebook. Graphics for this episode were created by Bob Bretz. Full episode transcription was created by James Lai. And it's time for the listener story. This is just a short audio story, like 5 to 10 minutes, and it's how we end every episode. So if you have a story you'd like to share, find a quiet place and record it on your phone. Then email it to scott@whatwasthatlike.com. This week's story is about seeing someone fall out of a car while it was moving. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time.
I'm 68 years old. I don't feel old, but I guess when I was born, there were only 48 states in the United States. Hawaii and Alaska didn't come around till 1959. But my point is, seatbelts in cars didn't become mandatory till 1968. I was 11 years old at that time. So my dad had a Ford Country Squire station wagon. All 9 of us kids would be piled in there, most of us in the back cargo area. And whenever he wanted to quiet things down in the car, he would tap the brakes and we would all lunge forward and bump our heads, I guess, and that would quiet everybody down. But this experience has to do with my cousin John. Now, my Aunt Jane was driving her station wagon, and she was going down the highway, and she was speeding. She says she remembers even being concerned, looking out for police that she wouldn't be stopped for speeding. But my cousin John was in the back seat of the station wagon. He was only 3 or 4 years old. Of course, no car seat, no seat belts. And he decided he was going to try opening the door, which he did. And my aunt says she just heard the car door open and close, looks back, and going down the road 70 miles an hour, her son John is out of the car. Well, she panicked. She pulled over to the side of the road and goes back expecting to find the worst. And here's my cousin John at 3 or 4 years old running after her down the side of the road saying, "Mom, don't leave me. Mom, don't leave me." Well, she scoops him up, takes him to the hospital, and the doctor says, "Well, he's got a couple scrapes, but no broken bones. You might as well just take him home." So I guess when you're 3 or 4, your bones are a little bit more flexible. You bounce a little bit better than you do when you get older. But we often relate that story about my cousin John. I guess it might have rattled his thyroid because he grew up to be 6 foot 6 inches tall. But other than that, he's normal.